The night Linda returned to Como City, the air felt strangely heavy. Not because of the humidity, not because of the endless airport noise that echoed like restless ghosts. It was something else, a nervous excitement sitting deep in her chest, making her fingers shake as she turned on her phone and saw 10 missed calls from her husband, Raymond. He had no idea she was back. For 3 long years, Linda had lived abroad, working exhausting double shifts as a nurse, saving every pound and every coin for the life they dreamed about together. She had told Raymond she needed 1 more year before returning home. That was the lie. She wanted to surprise him. She pictured him opening the door, freezing in shock before pulling her into his arms. She imagined tears, laughter, maybe even him whispering, "Asterisk, you finally came home." Asterisk, but the moment she stepped back into that house, everything she believed about her marriage began to collapse. The driver she hired from the airport kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Madam, you sure say make nobody know you day come?" Linda smiled softly. "I want it to be a surprise." Outside the car window, Como City rushed past her in familiar flashes. Crowded kiosks, yellow streetlights, the smoky scent of roasted corn mixing with fuel fumes. She had missed this city more than she admitted. Her fingers brushed the gold bracelet on her wrist, the one Raymond gave her the day she left. Back then, he held her face carefully at the airport like she was something fragile. "Go build our future," he had told her. "I'll hold things down here." And she believed him, completely. When the gates of their compound appeared, Linda's heartbeat quickened. The cream-colored duplex she paid for with sleepless nights abroad stood tall under the rain-dark sky. But something felt wrong. The security light near the balcony was new. The curtains had been changed. Pink flowers filled the garden where her white lilies used to grow. Her smile faded slightly. Maybe Raymond wanted to surprise her too.
Welcome to Wild Shadow Tales, where ordinary people carry extraordinary secrets. Like this video, subscribe to the channel.
The driver honked. A young security guard she had never seen before opened the gate halfway and stared at her cautiously. "Yes?" he asked. Linda frowned. "I live here. Call Raymond." The guard hesitated, looking her up and down like she was the stranger. "Oganode house, madam." Linda froze. "What do you mean he's not home?" "He traveled yesterday. Outside Como City." Her excitement dimmed, but she forced a laugh. "It's fine. I have keys." She dragged her suitcase toward the front door, suddenly aware of how fast her heart was beating. She inserted the key into the lock. It didn't turn. She tried again. Nothing. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. Then she heard footsteps approaching from inside. Not a man's footsteps. A woman's. The door slowly opened, and standing there was Zanab, her best friend since university. Zanab wearing Linda's silk house robe, barefoot, hair wrapped in Linda's favorite blue scarf. For a few horrifying seconds, neither of them spoke. They simply stared at each other like 2 people trapped inside the same nightmare. Linda's voice came out barely above a whisper. "What are you doing in my house?" Zanab blinked rapidly, panic flooding her face. Linda, behind her, the living room looked unfamiliar. The gray couches were gone. The family portraits had disappeared. Strange artwork covered the walls. A pair of men's shoes sat near the staircase, carelessly placed, nothing like the way Linda used to arrange them. "This isn't what it looks like," Zanab rushed out. Linda let out a dry, broken laugh. "Then tell me what it looks like." Zanab stepped outside quickly, half closing the door behind her. "Please lower your voice." Linda stared at her in disbelief. "Lower my voice? You're standing in my house wearing my clothes, and you want me to lower my voice?" The security guard pretended not to listen. "Please," Zanab whispered. "Let's talk inside." Linda didn't move. Her eyes hardened. "Where's my husband?" Zanab swallowed hard. "He's not here. That's not what I asked." The silence between them turned sharp enough to cut skin. "Zanab," Linda said slowly, "why do you have keys to my house?" Zanab looked away, and in that tiny moment, Linda felt something inside her snap. She pushed past her and walked inside. The smell hit first, expensive perfume she didn't own. On the center table sat 2 wine glasses, one still stained with lipstick. Her suitcase slipped from her hand. "Linda, please," Zainab whispered behind her. But Linda was already walking upstairs like someone moving through a nightmare. The master bedroom door stood slightly open. She pushed it wider. Everything had changed. The walls were beige instead of white. The bedsheets weren't hers. On the dresser sat framed photos of Raymond and Zainab together, smiling on a beach, standing too close, looking far too comfortable. Linda stopped breathing for a second. 3 years. 3 years of sending money home. 3 years of sacrificing sleep, peace, and dignity while believing she was building a future with her husband. 3 years of late-night calls, prayers, and promises. And all this time, someone else had been living her life. Behind her, Zainab started crying. "It started small," she whispered shakily. "He was lonely. I was only trying to help." Linda turned slowly. Her eyes looked almost empty now. "Help," she repeated quietly. "You helped by sleeping in my bed." "No, it wasn't like that at first. Then how was it?" Zainab covered her face, sobbing harder. "He told me you weren't coming back." Linda frowned. "What?" "He said you found someone abroad, that you stopped loving him." For a moment, Linda genuinely thought she might faint. "I worked 12-hour shifts," she whispered. Zainab kept crying. "He said you only sent money because you felt guilty." Linda's mind flashed through every video call, every "I miss you," every prayer they said together before sleeping. Had Raymond been lying through all of it? Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her hand. Raymond was calling. Both women stared at the screen. Linda answered calmly, though her entire world was collapsing. "Hello, Linda," Raymond said immediately, his voice tense. "Where are you?" Linda slowly looked around the bedroom. "I'm home." Silence. Then finally, "You should have told me you were coming." A bitter smile touched Linda's lips. "I wanted to surprise you." Another long pause followed. "Listen," Raymond said carefully. "We need to talk." Linda almost laughed. "Yes," she replied softly. "We definitely do." Outside, thunder shook the sky as rain slammed harder against the windows of the house she paid for. And standing there in the middle of that stolen bedroom, Linda realized something terrifying. This place no longer felt like home. But she wasn't leaving. Not yet. Because beneath the betrayal, something darker was hiding. Something that didn't make sense. And before the night ended, she intended to uncover every lie. When the call ended, Zainab wiped her tears nervously. "He's coming back." Linda walked toward the mirror and stared at her reflection. She looked like a stranger wearing her own face. But by the time Raymond stepped through that door, he was going to learn one thing the hard way. The woman he abandoned was not weak anymore. And the truth waiting inside that house was far bigger and far more dangerous than any of them realized. Outside, the storm intensified. Inside, a war was about to begin. And this was only the beginning. The rain kept hammering against the windows like it was desperate to get inside and witness the disaster unfolding beneath that roof. Linda remained standing in the bedroom, motionless. Zainab sat nervously at the edge of the bed, twisting her trembling fingers together. Suddenly, the silk robe hanging on her body looked pathetic, like someone trying too hard to fit into a life that was never theirs. Linda's thoughts spun violently. Every memory from the last 3 years returned at once. The nights Raymond called crying about failed business deals. The endless excuses about renovations and investments. The money she kept sending without hesitation because she believed that was what love looked like. Then another memory hit her hard. The day Zainab visited her abroad. She remembered the hug at the airport. The way Zainab looked at her tiny apartment and said, asterisk, "Not every woman could survive what you're doing." Asterisk, they had shared food, prayed together, laughed together. Now the memory felt poisoned. Linda slowly turned toward her. "How long?" she asked quietly. Zainab looked up immediately. "What? How long have you been living here?" That brief hesitation answered the question before her lips did. 2 years, she whispered. Linda nodded slowly, though her chest felt like it was caving in. "So barely 1 year after I left, you moved in my house." "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," Zainab cried. "He said the house was too big for him alone. He said robbers were targeting the area, and he needed someone around. Linda gave a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. So, but you became security guard and somehow ended up in the master bedroom too? Zanab broke down, crying again. It didn't happen all at once, Zanab whispered through tears. It happened little by little. Like Betrayal was a staircase nobody realized they were climbing until they reached the top. Suddenly, headlights sliced through the rain outside. All three of them froze. Raymond was home. Linda slowly straightened her shoulders and looked at Zanab with cold calmness. "Wipe your face," she said quietly. A few seconds later, the front door opened downstairs. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house. Slow, unhurried, he climbed the staircase without calling Linda's name, almost like he already knew exactly what was waiting for him upstairs. Then he stepped into the bedroom doorway and stopped. For one brief second, guilt flashed across his face. Real guilt, but it disappeared almost instantly, replaced by something colder, something calculating. "Linda," he said carefully. "Raymond." Zanab stood up quickly. "I'll go downstairs." "No," Linda said without looking at her. "Stay." Zanab glanced nervously at Raymond. He gave the slightest nod. She stayed. Linda studied her husband silently. He looked good. Too good. His beard was neatly trimmed, his stomach fuller. An expensive watch rested on his wrist, one she had never seen before. This was not a man who had been suffering alone. This was a man who had gotten comfortable. "You changed the locks," Linda said calmly. "Yes." "Why?" Raymond inhaled slowly, already sounding tired of the conversation. "Because things changed." "Explain." He rubbed his forehead. "Linda, we can't do this while emotions are high." A faint smile almost touched her lips. "I'm not emotional," she replied. "I'm listening." He glanced briefly at Zanab before facing his wife again. "You left." The simplicity of the accusation stunned her. "I left to work. You left me alone for 3 years. I left to build this house. You abandoned the marriage." The words hung heavily in the room. Linda's voice became quieter, more dangerous. "Did I stop calling you? Did I stop sending money? Did I stop praying for you every night?" Raymond hesitated. Then he chose another route. "You changed," he muttered. Every conversation became about hospital shifts, overtime, exhaustion. "You sounded distant." Linda let out a soft laugh, filled with disbelief. "I was exhausted." He stepped closer. "Marriage isn't built on money alone. And marriage isn't built on sleeping with your wife's best friend." She shot back immediately. Zanab flinched. Raymond's jaw tightened. "Watch your mouth." Linda stared at him, stunned by the audacity. "Watch my mouth," she repeated slowly. "That's what concerns you right now." His eyes darkened. "You think this is just about cheating, but it's bigger than that. Then explain it clearly." Raymond exhaled sharply. "You were never planning to come back." Her breath caught. "Yes," she admitted carefully. "Not yet, because I was trying to secure a better future for us. You never told me that. I wanted to surprise you once everything was stable." He shook his head bitterly. "You were building a whole new life abroad." "No," Linda snapped. "I was building options for us." The room suddenly felt too small. Then, unexpectedly, Zanab spoke. "He thought you were ashamed of him." Linda turned sharply. "What?" Zanab's voice trembled. "He said you didn't want him abroad because he wasn't educated enough, that you'd outgrown him." Linda slowly looked back at Raymond in disbelief. "That's what you believed?" He didn't answer. And, somehow, that silence hurt worse than anything else. "You could have asked me," she whispered. "You could have communicated better," he fired back instantly. Linda nodded slowly, almost impressed by the way he twisted blame. "So instead, you moved my best friend into my house." Raymond's voice dropped lower. "I didn't plan to fall in love with her." The words hit like a physical slap. Even Zanab looked shocked hearing him say it out loud. Linda became very still. "Love?" she repeated quietly. "Yes." He looked directly at her now. "I love her." The storm outside had weakened, but inside the room, the tension exploded. "And she loves me too." Zanab looked terrified. I care about him." Linda swallowed the bitter laugh rising in her throat. "So the two of you built your little romance inside my house, using my money." Raymond's expression hardened instantly. "It's not your house." The sentence detonated in the room. Linda blinked once. Excuse me. It's legally mine. For a second, she genuinely thought she misheard him. No, she whispered. The property was supposed to be in both our names. You weren't in the country, he said coldly. It was easier this way. Linda felt her pulse hammering violently in her ears. You forged documents. I handled things practically. The betrayal changed shape right there in front of her. This wasn't just emotional anymore. It was financial, legal, planned. Every transfer she made, every sacrifice, every exhausted night shift abroad suddenly felt like part of a scam she never saw coming. You planned this, she said softly. Raymond shook his head. I adapted. Linda stepped closer until they were almost face to face. Do you know what I did to earn that money? She asked quietly. He looked away. I cleaned blood off hospital floors. I worked night shifts until my body stopped feeling human. I miss Christmas. I miss birthdays. I even missed my father's burial because I was trying to build something for us. Her voice cracked for the first time. And you adapted? Xana burst into tears again. For a moment, guilt flickered across Raymond's face. But pride buried it quickly. You can't disappear for 3 years and expect life to stay frozen, he said. Linda nodded slowly. You're right. The answer surprised him. She walked calmly to the dresser and picked up one of the framed beach photos. Raymond and Xanab smiling together like a perfect couple. You both look happy, she said quietly. Neither of them replied. She placed the frame back down carefully. Tell me something, she continued. If I hadn't returned tonight, when exactly were you planning to tell me? Raymond hesitated, and that hesitation exposed everything. Xanab finally whispered the truth. He was going to file for divorce. Linda's stomach twisted violently. What? Next month, Xanab admitted weakly. For a brief second, the room tilted around Linda. Raymond straightened his shoulders again. It's better than living a lie. Linda stared at him for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. She smiled. Not for happiness. From clarity. You really think I came back unprepared, she said softly. Raymond frowned immediately. What does that mean? Without answering, Linda walked downstairs to her suitcase. From a hidden compartment inside, she pulled out a thick brown envelope. I didn't only come back to surprise you, she said calmly. She dropped the envelope onto the dining table. Raymond opened it cautiously. Inside were printed bank records, legal agreements, property documents, and papers carrying official foreign stamps. As he flipped through them, the color slowly drained from his face. Xana leaned closer nervously. What is all this? Linda folded her arms. Before I left Como City, I registered an international asset protection agreement. Every property purchased using my foreign income was documented as a protected marital investment. Raymond's breathing changed instantly. You can't enforce foreign law here, he said quickly. Linda tapped another page. I don't need to, because every transfer I made was legally recorded as international investment funding. She paused. If this goes to court, it becomes financial fraud. Xanab's mouth fell open. Raymond stared at the documents, visibly shaken for the first time that night. You're bluffing, he muttered. Linda tilted her head slightly. Then call your lawyer. The rain outside had completely stopped now, but inside the dining room, something much more dangerous had started. For the first time that night, Raymond looked at Linda like she was a stranger. Not the loyal wife who sacrificed everything for him. Not the woman sending money from abroad, but someone he had badly underestimated. And the night still wasn't over. Because there was one final truth Linda hadn't revealed yet. Something far darker than betrayal or stolen property. Something that would shake both Raymond and Xana to their core. Linda looked at them carefully before speaking. There's something else you both need to know. Their expressions tightened instantly. What now? Raymond demanded. Linda inhaled slowly. The real reason I came back early, she said quietly, is because someone has been watching this house. Silence swallowed the room whole. Raymond's hand tightened around the edge of the table. Xanab's breathing became shallow with fear, and neither of them was prepared for what that truly meant. What do you mean someone has been watching this house? Raymond asked sharply. Linda didn't answer immediately. She walked toward the window and slowly pulled the curtain aside. Outside, The wet pavement reflected the compound lights like shattered glass. The storm had passed, but the atmosphere inside the house felt heavier than ever. For the past 8 months, she said quietly, I've been receiving anonymous emails. Raymond's expression tightened. Emails about what? Linda turned slowly. About you. Zanab shifted uncomfortably in her seat. At first, I ignored them, Linda continued. I thought it was jealousy. People gossip when a woman travels abroad and starts sending money home. Her eyes hardened, but the messages became too detailed. Dates, locations, transactions, photos. Raymond straightened instantly. What photos? Without a word, Linda reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone. She opened a folder and placed it on the dining table. Zanab gasped first. The screen showed a photo of her and Raymond sitting together at a restaurant on Como City Island. Raymond's hand rested casually on Zanab's lower back, both of them smiling like they had nothing to hide. At the bottom of the photo was a date stamp. The same weekend Raymond had told Linda he was traveling outside the city for business. Linda swiped again. Another image. Raymond and Zanab entering the compound late at night together. Another swipe. Bank alerts. Large withdrawals. Transfers sent to an account registered under Zanab's name. Raymond's face lost its confidence. Where did you get all this? Linda held his stare. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. She paused for a moment before speaking again. You really want to know who exposed you? Raymond said nothing. Linda looked at Zanab instead. I think you deserve to know too. Zanab's lips trembled violently. Please just say it. Linda inhaled slowly. It was your fiancé. The room exploded into confusion. My what? Zanab whispered. Raymond frowned immediately. You had a fiancé? Zanab staggered backward, gripping the chair tightly for support. I was engaged before, she admitted weakly. Linda nodded once. His name is Chaik. The moment the name left her mouth, all the color drained from Zanab's face. He contacted me through social media, Linda continued. At first I thought it was a scam, but he knew too much. He knew about Raymond, about this house, about the money. Raymond looked between both women, visibly confused now. What is going on? Zanab covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Linda continued calmly, almost coldly. Chaik told me you suddenly ended the engagement without explanation. Then you blocked him everywhere. Tears rolled down Zanab's face instantly. He followed you one evening, Linda said. Saw you entering this house. Then he started investigating. When he realized whose home it actually was, he contacted me. Raymond stepped backward slowly, like the truth had physically hit him. You were engaged? He asked Zanab again, this time quieter. Zanab could barely speak. It was before things became serious with you. Linda shook her head gently. No, it overlapped. Zanab broke down completely. You told him you needed time to focus on your career, Linda continued. Meanwhile, you were already living here. The silence that followed felt crushing. Raymond dragged his hands across his face. So this Chaik guy's been spying on us. He was gathering evidence, Linda corrected sharply. Because unlike the two of you, he understood something was wrong. Raymond's jaw tightened. That man had no right. Linda's eyes locked onto his. No, she said quietly. You had no right. The room fell silent again, but now the silence felt heavier. Permanent. Zanab slowly sank into a chair. I never planned for this to happen, she whispered through tears. When you left, Linda, I was lonely too. Linda listened without interrupting. You were my only real friend, Zanab continued shakily. Then Raymond started calling me for small things, helping with documents, fixing things around the house. Her voice cracked. He kept saying you barely talked to him anymore, that you were changing. Linda remained expressionless. I felt important, Zanab admitted quietly. Needed. He kept comparing me to you, saying I understood him better. For the first time, Raymond actually looked uncomfortable. Zanab turned toward him with heartbreak burning in her eyes. You told me she was done with you. Raymond didn't deny it. And somehow, that silence said everything. Linda finally exhaled slowly. Something inside her had settled completely now. You both built this relationship on lies, she said. and now you're shocked it's falling apart. Raymond looked at her sharply. Don't stand there pretending you're innocent in all this. Linda met his gaze steadily. Tell me my crime. You left your marriage vulnerable. She nodded once. I left to secure our future. Then her voice became quieter. I trusted you to protect our present. Raymond had no response for that. The house suddenly felt too small, too suffocating for all the truth trapped inside it. Linda picked up the property documents again. Before I landed in Como City, she said calmly, I already spoke to a lawyer. Raymond's head snapped up instantly. You what? I wanted to confirm my legal position. She tapped the papers lightly. And according to the documentation, I contributed enough financially to claim legal interest in this property. At the very least, it cannot be sold, transferred, or refinanced without my consent. For the first time that night, Raymond looked genuinely worried. Then Linda delivered the next blow quietly. As for the marriage, she paused. I'll be filing for divorce. Xana burst into tears again. Raymond stared at Linda in disbelief. You're ending it just like that? Linda gave him a tired look. Just like that, she repeated softly. You ended this marriage 2 years ago. The words cut deeper than shouting ever could. Raymond opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Linda slowly looked around the house. The expensive furniture, the changed curtains, the life that had continued without her. I did not come back to compete for a man who already made his choice, she said calmly. And I will never beg for space inside a home I paid for. Then she turned toward the staircase. Where are you going? Raymond asked. To sleep. In this house. Linda looked back over her shoulder. Yes, she replied evenly. In this house. He stared at her for a moment, unsure whether to stop her. But something in her expression silenced him completely. It wasn't anger anymore. It was authority. Later that night, the house settled into an uneasy silence. Linda lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she allowed herself to finally feel everything. The betrayal, the humiliation, the years of blind trust. But beneath all of it was something unexpected. Relief. The confusion was gone. The self-doubt was gone. The endless questioning was gone. Truth, no matter how painful, had a strange way of clearing the air. Downstairs, she could hear Raymond and Xanab arguing in hushed voices. Their words blurred together, but the tension was obvious. Because relationships born in secrecy rarely survive exposure. By morning, everything had changed again. Linda woke early and stepped onto the balcony. The city smelled fresh after the storm. Horns blared in the distance. Street vendors shouted. Como City had already moved on, indifferent to heartbreak. Behind her, footsteps approached quietly. Raymond. He looked exhausted. Older somehow. Xanab left, he said softly. Linda turned slowly. Where did she go? She packed before dawn. Linda nodded once. And you? She asked. Raymond hesitated before speaking. I made mistakes. Linda held his gaze. You thought I was drifting away, and instead of reaching for me, you replaced me. He lowered his head. I was insecure. That explains it, Linda replied. But it doesn't excuse it. I know. They stood there in silence for several seconds. Then Raymond finally asked the question he had been afraid to say aloud. Is there any chance for us? Linda gently raised her hand, stopping him before he could continue. Don't ask for something you didn't protect. His eyes filled with regret, but she refused to soften. Because forgiveness and reconciliation are not always the same thing. Linda looked out over the waking city before speaking again. I'll stay in Como City for now, she said quietly. We'll handle the legal process properly, Linda said calmly. Raymond nodded weakly. Okay. She looked at him one last time before turning away. And Raymond, he lifted his eyes slowly. Yes. Never confuse a woman's sacrifice with weakness again. The words landed heavily between them. And this time, he had no defense left. In the weeks that followed, the divorce papers were filed. The house was professionally evaluated. Assets were divided. Nothing about the process was easy. There were arguments. Family members picked sides. Accusations spread through the extended family like wildfire. Some blamed Linda for leaving the country. Others blamed Raymond for destroying his marriage. A few people whispered that Xana had been manipulated too. But through all of it, Linda stayed calm. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because she refused to let pain turn her bitter. And then, when everyone expected her to run back abroad and disappear again, she shocked them. She stayed in Como City. This time, not as someone's wife. Not as someone sacrificing herself in silence. But as Linda. Using the international medical experience she spent years building, she opened a small private healthcare consultancy. At first, business came slowly. A few clients. A tiny office. Long days. But slowly word spread. People respected her professionalism. More importantly, they respected her resilience. Of course, the scandal followed her for a while. Como City loved gossip. People talked about the cheating, the stolen house, the best friend betrayal. Some exaggerated the story until it barely sounded real anymore. But gossip fades when success becomes louder than scandal. And Linda kept rising. Months later, one quiet evening, she received one final email from Chike. Just one sentence. Asterisk, I hope you're healing. Asterisk. Linda stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she closed the email without replying. Not because she was ungrateful, but because she no longer needed saving. One evening, as she locked the doors to her office, Linda paused outside and looked up at the sky. Orange and purple stretched across Como City as traffic roared in the distance and streetlights flickered awake one by one. And suddenly, she thought about the woman who arrived months earlier with a suitcase full of hope. The woman who expected love and walked straight into betrayal. If she could speak to that version of herself now, she wouldn't tell her to turn around. She wouldn't tell her to stay abroad. She would tell her to walk through that front door anyway. Because sometimes the heartbreak you fear most becomes the very thing that sets you free. Eventually, the house in Como City was sold. Linda invested her share wisely. Raymond moved into a smaller apartment across the city. Xana disappeared from Linda's life completely, like someone swallowed by the consequences of her own choices. And Linda? Linda learned something priceless. Distance does not destroy love. Dishonesty does. Sacrifice alone cannot secure loyalty. Character can. And sometimes the most painful homecoming becomes the beginning of a stronger, wiser life. As the lights of Como City shimmered beneath the night sky, Linda stepped forward into her future alone, but no longer deceived. And somehow, that made all the difference. This story was inspired by emotional African relationship dramas and modern folktale storytelling. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below. More powerful stories are coming soon. Stories filled with twists, emotion, betrayal, and lessons you won't forget. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.